I want to introduce an absolute amazing friend, Robin Aisha Landsong. I'm not going to tell a whole lot about her story so that she's going to tell us all about it. But she is an absolute amazing healer, medicine singer, trauma resolution leader, and visionary artist. She has helped so many people, including myself, with my own healing. And I'm really honored. It's hard to believe it's been a year already, but since we first met. Her NDE is so compelling, and just the perseverance that she has gone through is absolutely amazing. And she has devoted her whole life to helping others, a life of service. And I really am excited for you all to experience her, not only her story, but the intense love that she expresses as she speaks and as she heals others. You can go to her website, which is www.robinlandsong.com. Also, if you click, there's a link that we'll put in the chat for online classes that she has a free Nurture Your Nervous System class that's going to be August 12th. I'm going to be to that, and I'm really excited. So with that, welcome, Robin. I am so grateful that you are here today. I'm so excited to hear you speak, and all the people who might not have heard you. I am so excited for them to meet you. So
thank you. We've planned this, and here we are. And I love when everybody shows up, and it's just a joyful connection time. Yeah. So you want me to just go ahead and start in, or do you have other things you want to
yes,
ask first?
it's
Okay.
all yours.
All right. Great. And so Shaun and I had a great conversation talking about what are some of the, in addition to my near-death experiences, what are some of the things I really want to get across to people? And several of my points of passion, because it's been so helpful to me in my life and my healing, is really helping people transform our patterns of self-criticism over to self-compassion. And how do we actually do that? And another piece, something that's really important to me, is social equality, and how much both the oppressed and the oppressor, our lives are really diminished by the lack of social equality. So as I'm sharing my stories, I'm going to be covering those. And if people take away one thing from my sharing, if they come away with more confidence about healing your own trauma, then I've done my work today. And that my story and the reason I share it is just a vehicle for you to see in yourself your own hero, your own hero's journey, your own ability to overcome and make meaning of what you've lived through. And that from where I am now, very much on the having done so many years of trauma resolution, that when we can make meaning, when we can integrate our difficult experiences, it can be the very foundation that we use to be of service to others. And that when we get safe in our nervous system and our lives, we can use that position to help lift other people up, to help increase their safety. And one thing I want to say before I start into the actual kind of narrating my story is, one of my teachers said to me, trauma is in your nervous system, not in the event. So the idea that just put it behind you or just put it in the past, that's not actually very useful to people, because it's present in the nervous system until it's resolved. And so again, I'm hoping what people will get out of all my sharings is that you too can take your next step in your trauma resolution, because it is when we turn toward ourselves, when we stay with ourselves and our truth of our experience, that we can actually get through it and get to freedom. And one of my teachers says avoidance and compassion can't exist in the same place. So I'm going to share my story as a showing of the way I turn towards my experiences. So again, thank you so much everyone for being here. I love doing this, and I love seeing all the beautiful faces, and I'm so grateful for technology to bring all of us together here tonight. All right, so Shaun, you want to give me a thumbs up if my sound is good? Okay, excellent. So I'm grateful to share that I survived my 2 death experiences, and I was growing up in a household that had that generational disruption where my parents had really disconnected and lost their ability to deeply care for myself and my siblings. So we were in that generational pattern of silence, not talking about the truth, not talking about the abuse that was happening, both within my home and also in my neighborhood. And so what was happening is I was being exposed to a lot of pedophiles. And one of those men saw me as an unprotected child. And it was 1977, so post-Vietnam War. At that point in 1977, Child Protective Services didn't really exist in most states. Some places were just developing the paperwork. So when people say, oh, how could this stuff happen? Remember, 1977, there is no government system to report abduction, and there's very few even state systems to report child abuse. And so I'm just really acknowledging my gratitude for all the people who have done so much social change to make child abuse and child care much more of an open topic. So I was a kid who walked home from school and then was just let myself in at the end of the day. And so this man spotted me. He was a white American and watched that I walked home. So he came to my school, got me at the end of the day, at the end of the school year, and abducted me. And because it's a strange thing to say, it's a good that I was already an abuse survivor, because I knew how to be silent. I knew how to deeply read adults. And so I was born intuitive, but going through abuse can really open up your intuition because you have to figure out how you're going to survive each moment. So I was able to read that he was extremely dangerous, and he was very physically strong. He was appeared to me that he was military trained, so there was no fighting him. Again, I'm 8 years old, and so he took me from school. He drugged me, and the last that I remember is when he drugged me, really him saying like, "Okay, we're a team now. We're going to be together again," and he was convincing me. It was the beginning of convincing me that he was actually my father and that I was his daughter, which is not true, but if any of you have studied abduction, if you're told something enough in a crisis state, you can start to believe it. So when I became conscious again, I was, unbeknownst to me, I was in Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe. We were on a military base, and he was very dangerous. My life was threatened at every moment. He had full capacity to kill me at any time, and really let me know that. And so again, I really had to dig deep and call on divine source. And at that point, I did not want to live. I wanted to have him kill me, and just so I could go get away from him, and so I could go home to divine source. He did assault me. He kicked me and broke my ribs. And at that point, I did see an angel, and I expected fully to be able to get the opportunity to go home. And she told me it wasn't my time. And I argued with her and said, I want a new angel because I want to go. And so I was kept here in my body. I was hospitalized. And for those of you who have been through extreme trauma, you know that sometimes you do want to go. And just the humility of not even being able to die when I wanted to die. So again, I woke up, I was conscious again in a hospital, and no one stopped him when he came back to get me several days later out of the hospital. And I'm not sure why he came to get me, because his 5 days of training, military training, were done, and he had to go into the field. And so he gave me to another man. I don't know the nature of that exchange, but he was a white man, and he gave me to a black African man. It might have been true that he was just giving him to me to get rid of me. What happened is I got put on a bus, and the bus broke down. And when we were all directed to get off and walk, I could not keep up because my ribs were broken, my painkillers are wearing off, and this man left me behind. So here I am, 8 years old. It's 1977. Unbeknownst to me, it's the height of the Rhodesian War. And the chances of my survival, a white child alone out in the bush, were really next to nothing. And so again, I just thought, okay, this is how I'm going to die. I'm just going to, die out here in the bush alone, and it's going to be the end of my 8 miserable years. And what happened next is that a truck full of soldiers came by, and they stopped right in front of me. There was no place for me to hide. And I thought, now this is how I'm going to die, and it's going to be much faster. One of them got down, put me on the truck, and I thought, well, they're just taking me somewhere to shoot me. And when we arrived to where they were taking me, two soldiers literally had an argument over me. I was in the center. One was arguing to shoot me, and the other was arguing that I was an innocent child, and he was arguing to save my life. I couldn't understand it because it's in Venda, but I understood the sentiment. And just the stress of that, I just collapsed, which is called parasympathetic shutdown. And all mammals, when our life is threatened, will go into self-preservation. It's mercy to not feel being killed. So at that moment, my body just said, this is it. So I'm just going to go into a state of death. When I became conscious again, the man who won the argument to save my life, he took the risk to take me out of there. And so what I want to really get across is that he could have been shot by his fellow soldiers to go against the notion of just ending my life. But he took the risk to take me out of there. He took me to a village he thought would be sympathetic to a white child. It was also closer to the border to South Africa to get me out of Zimbabwe. And then he dropped me off. And he kind of, again, I couldn't understand his language, but basically the sentiment was, go to that village, little girl. And so it was night. I thought I heard they had barking dogs. I now realize those might have been hyenas somewhere else. And so I climbed a tree and spent the night in a tree by myself. And in the morning, I heard singing. And the women were singing while they worked. And I went closer to that singing because it was aliveness. It was wholeness. And I wanted to find out, how do these women sing in a way that sounds like joy while they're working? So I crept up and I was watching them, and eventually they spotted me, and they were very surprised to see a white child by herself. And so I crept closer, and they brought food to me, and they brought water to me. And eventually I came out and took those in. And that night they laid out, I was too scared to actually go be with them. But that night they laid out a goat skin for me to sleep on. And in the morning, it was the children who welcomed me in. And the children gathered around me, and they were touching my then more blonde hair, touching my white skin. And they took me to a fire circle. And the eldest girl began to tell a story. And the sentiment that I got was, and she arrived to us. And so she was including me in her story, and she began to put black ash on my skin, on my arms, and she was making me look more like the other children with this black ash. And in the end of her telling this story, I realized I must be valuable, I must be important, because I just had a story told about me. And so all the children thought it was so fun, and they all joined in on covering me with black ash. And it was the first moment of belonging, of being welcomed in, that I'd ever experienced in my whole 8 years. And I didn't know what was going to happen next, but I knew I wanted to belong with these people. So one of the women from the village who had been singing in the beginning came over, and she sat down and she started singing to me and calling me to her. And my singing is different than hers, but I'm going to do something like what she did for me in terms of her calling me in. Shoeam, shoe, heam, neam, ho, ham, nei, ho, ho. So I went towards the singing, and eventually she called me in closer, and she was calling me to look at her in the eyes, which I didn't look adults in the eyes because I didn't want to have them see the badness inside me, and I didn't want their insanity to get in me. But with her, it was different, and I eventually had the courage to look her in the eyes. And when I did that, when I was able to look her in the eyes, I saw the eyes of a mother for the first time in my life. And I literally collapsed into her arms. And let her be my mama, let her be my shelter. So I thought, this is my new life. This is my new mama. I was being welcomed in. I was taught the songs. I was taught how to plant the seeds in the field. And more ceremony happened. And eventually, after I was there for about a month, they gave a ceremony and gave me the name Shai. And the greeting for a girl is I. So I thought my name was Aisha. So that's the name that I've taken for myself, for my middle name. And so I did not understand that there was a war going on around us. So the height of the Civil War, there was 3 sides to it. And one day I ventured too far to the creek where the women had put clay on my broken ribs and helped heal me. And they sang to me, and they called me to sing back to them. And when I could sing back to them, they considered me well. So to me, this creek was a very positive place. I went there by myself. And I didn't know that there was a battle starting right next to the creek. And what I believe happened is that there was a scout who was scouting the perimeter, and he spotted me, and immediately he pulled up his rifle, aimed it at me, and when his gun barrel became just a circle, I knew there was no hope for me. And he was close enough that I could actually see him pull the trigger. And I couldn't understand why the men of the village were helping me and protecting me, and he looked just the same. He had the same dark black skin. Why couldn't he see that I was valuable? And why was he about to pull the trigger? And I heard the gun go off, and I just began to turn, but the bullet grazed the top of my head, blew me off my feet, and I fell to the ground. And I began dying of blood loss. My view went to above my body, and I was looking down on myself like I was like a city going into a blackout. And when my heart went dim, I knew that was it, and there was no returning. And I began to journey through a tunnel very fast, and I felt completely held. And the beauty of crossing over is that I no longer had to fight to survive. I no longer had to defend myself. I'd been fighting to survive for so many years. And the peace of crossing over and being held was so expansive and soft. And when I became a little bit aware, it was kind of just a little window of awareness, like an aperture that was barely open. And the first thing I sensed was 2 women. And one of them began to touch my face, and I remembered, oh, I have a form, something like a body. And then I began to see them, and there's black skin and yellow dresses, and they felt like my older sisters who had been there to welcome me back at the end of every lifetime. And I now understand it was my 2 mamas from the village. And I'll explain that kind of time circle in a moment. And so they helped me remember, oh, I have this new African family. But they waved their arm to this golden glowing sphere. And that if I wanted, I could go the easy way, which is just to go home to source through this golden sphere. But I wasn't done with my African family. I still wanted to be Aisha. I still wanted to have this first experience of loving family. And so when I began to grasp for that experience, it sent me backwards, and I began to fall away from my 2 sisters and the golden sphere. And when I landed, I was in this stone stairwell that was kind of like Ireland on a cold day. And my heritage is Irish. And I was in this stairwell, and I looked over, and this stairwell was so worn down, like so many beings had walked down, that the stones were literally worn down in the center. And I thought, oh, I had it better before, where it was bright, illuminated, warm. And this man appeared next to me, and he was offering to help me up. And I didn't want his help, but I was so weak. I couldn't understand why I was so weak and feeble. So I finally accepted his help to help me up. And he looked like he had lived here for a long time and he knew where to go. So he was guiding me down this next set of stairs, and so I just went with him. But there was something dripping on my shoulder, and I thought it was rain, but then I checked it, and it was my own blood. And I showed it to him, and I was panicked, and I realized my head was bleeding and covering my shoulder with blood. And he knew, he could see it. It was just news to me. So he kept guiding me down these stairs. And where we went next was a stone stair archway. And I didn't want to go in because it was dark, like a dark cave. But he guided me into this dark cave. And inside were all the emotions I hadn't expressed in my 8 years. So there was my own crying. There was my own, what I had avoided, of seeing the faces of all the people who had abused me. And I wanted to turn away, but he put his hand over my hand on his arm, and he guided me to stay with him. And in that moment, I could see myself through his eyes, and I saw there was nothing wrong with me that made the abuse happen. There was nothing bad about me that made adults abuse me. And he wasn't trying to fix me or correct me, because I was fine as I was. And when I returned back to my body, all my own screaming, my repressed screaming, was gone, because I had a little bit more increment of self-acceptance. We journeyed through the rest of the cave, and when we came out, we were in a night sky that was like living stars. And I had turned to him and I said, "Where are we going next?" And he just spoke to me telepathically. And he said to me, "This is dying, and we're going to jump off this cliff and we're going to fly down like birds in the night sky." And so with his guidance, I just jumped off. We glided down, and it was really this gentle, loving experience. And I thought, if this is dying, then it is fully held and fully guided. And again, he said to me, he showed me the golden glowing sphere was even bigger at this point. And I could have gone into that, but I still wanted to show. I thought about my African family, and I thought, I want to share with them everything that's happened. And then I got scared, what if I lose them? So I had a sense that they were down in this field down below me. So I kind of directed my flight to land in this field. And when I got there, I became very panicked that maybe they were hurt, that maybe they were injured on the ground bleeding, and that I had to find them and help them. And so I began to run around in this field calling out to them. And eventually I just collapsed and cried until I was like a storm cleared out. And when I had done that, then I began to hear a rustling in the grass. And I followed that rustling in the grass until I came to an open field. And there was a being, a man, who was the presence of stillness. And I ran up to him thinking he could help me get back to my African family. But when I arrived to be before him, I couldn't even remember why I was distressed. He was like a calm mountain lake. And I stood before him and I was looking at his face. And at first it was a narrow face with a beard, and he had a sheep herder's staff and a robe on with like a felted robe with big sleeves. And I was looking at him trying to really understand who he was, but his face changed. And he was showing me that it's not the form that matters, it's the connection. And so I thought about Atto, one of the men in the tribe that was like a father to me. And then his face changed to Atto. And my heart opened up with so much love. And his face changed again to someone I did not know. And my heart stayed just as open. And I realized I was more capable of loving even a stranger than I had understood. And his face changed to a lion. And so this art is inspired by that meeting. And so then he touched his forehead to mine and he gave me the greatest gift. And I could see as he sees, which is like a living matrix, and that we are each a gem of light in this living matrix, and that we can strengthen our connection to one another by our love and our focus. And this is why residing in peace in our nervous system, coming back to self-compassion, is such a gift to the entire matrix, because then we can be more present for ourselves and present for others. So I was returned back to my form, but with the understanding that even if I lost my African family, I could belong to this universal family of every frog, every mountain, every living being, that we're all interconnected. So again, with my heart, I asked him, where are we going next? And he showed me that through him, I could get closer to my Creator, to my divine source. So with total devotion, I leaned into him. And through him, we went through a tunnel, and we arrived to looking above my body. And when we were looking down on my body, my African mama, Mami Atan, had found my body, and she had pulled my limp body up into her lap, and she was stopping the blood flow. And she was wailing into the sky. And I wanted to tell her, I'm fine. I'm totally guided. I'm completely held. You don't need to worry about me. And I wanted to comfort her grieving. And so I began to rise up. And rising up, I was going through veils. And I began to hear her change her wailing into singing. But I kept going through the veils and the beings that were purifying me of any last thoughts that there was something wrong with me, so that I could be available to fully receive the divine love that was up ahead. And as I continued to cross through the veils, going home to what I call the great heart that sung all of us into being. And I believe we began as a seed syllable, a note, a sound in the universe, and that our being forms around that sound. And so as I was going home to Source, another song reached me, and that my Mami Atan had changed her calling song to call on the ancestors of the land. And when she did that, her song was so powerful, it reached me through all the veils. And when it reached me, I paused, and I was remembering that I hadn't done my purpose, which is to sing medicine songs to people, to help call them home to themselves, just as she was doing for me. And so I decided to come back to live that purpose. And again, her singing is different than mine, but I just want to get across some of the potency of what she was giving me. Shoe am I am ho way. Shoe am I am ho. Shoe am I am ho way. And I returned back to my body. And of course I was so fragile and felt like the wind could blow through me. I still let her be my shelter. I let her be my mama. And the other people from the village arrived, and they carried me back and brought me into a hut. And they sang songs to get the hatred that came with the bullet off my head, so I wouldn't go through life confused with resentment. And they laid things on me to help me be back in my body, back in my solid form. But from that point, I could know the thoughts, the wishes, the desires of everyone. I could just look at people and know what was inside them. And so I already had opened up intuition, but this opened it up even more. So they cared for me, and of course, this is rural Zimbabwe in the height of the war, so there is no such thing as getting me to a hospital. There's no transportation. The hospital is very far away, and it's the height of the war. So they cared for me, and I was recovering, and they were singing songs to help get my strength back. And what happened 2 days later is that the soldiers came back, and that they attacked the village. And I was in a hut with one of the other mothers when we heard the shooting start. And I was hearing the screams of everyone I love. And when my other mother, Mama Naisha, thought that the shooting was done, she ran out of the hut and she was carrying me on her hip. And we didn't make it very far before more bullets came. She was shot from behind. We both went down. I hit the ground hard, which started my bleeding again. And when I became able to sit up again, she was yelling at me to go. And I wanted to be able to take her with me, but I was 8. I had just died of blood loss 2 days earlier, and she was screaming at me to go. So I did what she said, despite that it still breaks my heart that I couldn't pull her with me. And I ran, and I made it about another 15 feet before I went down. And so I was going down a slight hill. I was running towards the Limpopo River for the cover of the big trees, but I just made it down a sand hill. And when I collapsed, I had a second death experience. And so I crossed over, and this was entirely different. When I became aware again, I was in a white landscape. There was no sound, nothing to look at. It was like a blank canvas where nobody had come to paint. But a song was being sung to me. You will live, you will live. And it was a simple nursery rhyme. And to me, it was the melody of 3 blind mice, which was a very positive association for me because my brother, the kindest thing he ever did for me when I was sick with a very strong fever, he read the whole trilogy of 3 blind mice to me. So I trusted whoever was singing this song to me. And I have a brain injury. I can barely track things, and I'm literally seeing the words in front of me. You will live. And there's a blue bouncing ball going on the words, which I need because I have a brain injury and I can't track much. And so I'm wondering, who's singing to me? Who's delivering this song? And when I ask that, I am moved closer to this being who's on the other side of a veil. And I say, I want to see you and understand who you are. So he moves me closer to see through the veil. And his skin is a very beautiful dark blue, and he's masculine and feminine at the same time. He has a bun on his hair, but he's very masculine body. And I know with one hand he can create, and the other hand he can destroy. And I'm very intimidated that I'm in front of such a powerful being. But I also know that he's brought me there to really show me something important. And what he's showing me is destruction makes available the ingredients for new creation. And he shows me this. First he shows me a record player, and it has a big scratch on it. And I say, oh, this record should be thrown away. And he says, the wounds are how I find you so I can love you and know you. And I realize he's not going to throw me away just because I've been injured and damaged. And so he begins to show me 2 land masses colliding together to make a mountain. And I'm watching all this destruction, but this new mountain made. And then he's showing me grain by grain the mountain coming down in little slides. And he says to me, shall we destroy the mountain so you can have the beach? And I say, I don't like the destruction part. Can I have both? And he says, you don't understand the cycles because you're human, but destruction has to happen so that the ingredients for new creation. And so what he's telling me is, even though I just lost everyone I loved in a massacre, that somehow, someday, some good is going to come from it. And he's showing me that for some reason, it's part of the greater good that I live. And he's going to return me back to life and help me with my life source. So I'm returned to my body. I've been laying on my arm is completely numb, my neck is very damaged, I'm now blind in one eye. But he's commanding me, literally commanding me to crawl forward, and he's saying, you have to get away from the village because the animals are going to come from the smell of blood. So he commands me every inch, and I pull myself and I crawl forward. And I don't want to live, but his will is going through me. And I don't want to be here anymore. I want to die and die with everyone else. But it is his divine source running through me that is commanding me to go forward. And in the morning, a woman comes to the well where he had commanded me to crawl to. And she finds me and she washes the blood off me. She puts me on her back and she takes me back to her homestead. When people see she has a wounded, half-dead white child, they say, "Don't bother with her. It's too dangerous." And she says, "I won't throw her away. She's a living human being." So she cares for me. She hides me. It's very dangerous for her family to have a white child. She could be accused from the white government of abducting me. She could be accused by the extreme soldiers for siding with the oppressor and the enemy. So she hides me, and her granddaughter, Mayamu, cares for me like her little sister. So eventually they ask the nearest white people, "We found this white child. We don't know what to do with her." They say, "Give her to us. We'll find her family." They have no idea I'm American. So they take me across the Limpopo River into South Africa and give me to this white farming family, which is totally heartbreaking for me. I'm going from being sung to and touched and slept next to an entirely different culture, to Afrikaans culture. And they're farmers, they are busy. I'm not touched, I'm not sung to. And I have the luxury of running water and a bathroom and being fed more, but I'm beginning to die of loneliness. I have no family, I have no future. My head gets infected, and I start to die again. And the family does find that I'm dying. They take me to a hospital in South Africa, which is the Polokwane Hospital. And there I'm treated with antibiotics, and they basically interview me, threaten me with the orphanage if I won't say where I'm from. I eventually give my information about my family. They're looked up, and an agent from South Africa takes me on a flight and takes me back to the Philadelphia airport, and I'm reunited with my father, my real father. And in the morning when I wake up and I try to tell my mother anything about what happened, and I think I might have said something like, "I have to get back to my real mother." And she hits me across the face and says, "Don't ever speak of this again." And so I didn't. I have a brain injury, I have broken ribs, I just have to protect myself. So I remember, like so many of you who grew up in abusive homes or had experiences where you can't speak your truth, I shut it all down. I repressed it all. I repressed all the experience. I repressed my near-death experiences and put it all away so I could remember how to survive in a family culture of silence. So to this day, my parents are both deceased, and I left home at 19 and never went back, so I could begin my trauma recovery and my commitment to myself and commitment to, unbeknownst to me, those I could serve by my trauma resolution and serving other people in their trauma resolution. So my siblings don't acknowledge any of this happened. They probably don't remember a lot of our childhood since there was abuse, but they refuse to acknowledge any of this. And like many of you who have survived abuse and have gone against the kind of code of secrecy, you get called a liar or crazy or whatever names people can come up with. And so I really like to share my story to validate the human ability to overcome our experiences. And again, if there's anything people can get out of it, if you can see yourself mirrored in what I'm sharing, to know your own strength, your own life review, and those places where you got broken open to find out what you are made of, broken open to have to call on your divine source because your human self wasn't going to be enough. And again, the importance of doing our trauma resolution work, addressing what's in our nervous system history so that we can arrive to our life free, have options to go forward in a good and strong way so that our divine gift, our divine assignment can come through us in a radiant and powerful way. So I'm going to pause there. And Shaun, do you have questions? Or I have, of course, more I can keep going on in the self-compassion piece. I'll just pause there.
Real quickly, wow. You know, I think I can speak very well for most people here who have suffered some sort of trauma. You are such an amazing testament to will of the spirit and how the light can enter wounds. Absolutely. And for everybody to know, I have known Robin for a year, and this is how she speaks all the time, even in the midst of chaos. And I'm always in awe that I can be stressed out about something and I can talk to Robin, and she's always so calm. It doesn't matter what's going on in her life. Very soothing. And I do have some more to say, but one thing that I really wanted since we are Hawaiian IANDS, you talked about destruction versus creation in your NDE. Talk a little bit more about that, because also you've been to Hawaii. I mean, for those of us here and we've been on the Big Island, you actually witness it down in Puna. And it's so humbling.
Yes.
And so many of us with our wounds, and so we don't want to let go. And we're afraid that these wounds are literally blessings, for lack of a better word. So maybe talk a little more about that.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of the many gifts that came through, which, by the way, one, in case you happen to have noticed, is her amazing artwork, which behind me is a Hawaiian turtle that she drew. So yeah, more about how it did break you open and the severe trauma.
Mm-hmm. And I remember at one point when I was so I started my recovery process. Like I said, I left home at 19. I went to inpatient trauma treatment by the time I was 20. And because I believe Shiva and the other beings that I met during my death experience, because they gave me such a strong mission, I started my healing so early. And so it wasn't pretty. All through my 20s, I just did crisis, what I call the gritty years of healing work. And I just was living repressed memories, having nightmares, waking up with sleep paralysis. My skin would break out. It's just, there's nothing fun or pretty about it. I spent all my money on therapy. I explored every technique, craniosacral, acupuncture, yoga. I worked on changing my diet so I fed my body better. And a real key I always want to get across to people is making sure that you take adrenal support. So trauma is extremely hard on the kidneys as an organ. From Chinese medicine perspective, the threat of annihilation can really freeze up the kidneys. So the adrenals are little caps on top of the kidneys, and so they need to be nourished, just like our blood needs to be nourished and our heart needs to be nourished. Our adrenals can get fatigued, and that will look like you suddenly have energy when it's time to go to bed. You startle really easily and don't recover. Things just exhaust you. In the afternoon, you just can't function. You have foggy thinking. So if those are some of your symptoms, I really encourage people to see a naturopath, an herbalist, an acupuncturist. Do your research on adrenal fatigue. And there's a really beautiful number of herbs that can help you with adrenal fatigue. This is not something that Western medicine can really help people with unless they're a functional medicine doctor. So again, naturopath, herbalist, acupuncturist, functional medicine doctor. Most Western medicine, they're just not trained in the importance of adrenals, which is odd since if it gets exhausted enough, we can die from that. So I'm not sure why Western medicine is behind on that. So addressing that, addressing your nutrition, you can't really fully do trauma work without feeding yourself well, because your brain runs on what you feed it. So I really encourage people to do a non-inflammatory diet, whole food diet, plant-based diet, and love yourself through food. The more trauma and neglect and abuse you had in childhood, the more you need to care for yourself as an adult. And that you are your hero who's going to show up to do this self-care. And Shaun, going back to what you said, who are we if we let go of these trauma stories, if we're ready to move into something else? And a lot of my theme that I've come to for myself is trauma to leadership. And when I was, I think about 24, and I was just barely occasionally starting to have some space for joy, for doing something else. And I thought to myself, if I don't have all this trauma to generate doing all this kind of cathartic art, maybe I won't be an artist anymore, which is super funny because the more healing I've done, the more generative I've gotten. And it was so important in the beginning that I basically was vomiting out my trauma stories through art. And then now I can choose to do beautiful things. So this is one of my blankets to honor my mamietan in Africa here. And I made it like the creation myth that the world rests on the back of a turtle, and my world rested on her back. And then again, this is a blanket that I send my art to a weaving company, and they make these blankets. And to honor the being that some might consider Jesus that I met, and his face changed to a lion. So just coming back to what else am I behind the trauma story? And so often, like, anger can be a cover for sadness, or for some people, collapsing is a cover for their true authentic power. And one of the things I love in working with people is helping people come home to their power. And that one of the nervous system states for those of us who have survived severe trauma is to shut down and go parasympathetic dormant. And so that can be the healing process, is to stand up in your power, stand up in your agency. And Peter Levine has really great work around this, moving from shutdown to connection. We have to go through activation, which often means we have to work with our anger to get back in our dignity and our agency before we can come back to self-connection and other connection. And I want to just pause here and speak too about the importance of, I think I've done about 16,000 sessions. And the longer I do this work around helping people come home to themselves, the more I'm convinced how we speak to ourselves can keep the post-traumatic stress going. Because when we yell at ourselves, when we berate ourselves, we activate our amygdala inside our brain. That sets off a cascade of stress response. So it is the same if we yell at ourselves if somebody else outside of ourselves is yelling at us. And it can become so chronic that we don't even notice we're doing it. So the first step in getting to self-compassion is noticing the way you speak to yourself, noticing your self-beratement, and then just pausing, dropping that thought, coming back to your breath, getting curious, what's my true nature? How can I find that out in my next inhale and exhale? So again, if I notice I'm being too judgmental, hard on myself, unrealistic expectations, or even just calling myself names, drop it, come back to the breath. What's my true nature? What am I really? What did the Creator make? Breathing in, breathing out. And at some point, if you can arrive to self-compassion, which is being with your difficulty, turning towards your suffering instead of avoiding and turning away from your suffering, being with ourselves, turning towards ourselves, is big medicine. That right there, if the whole world turn towards themselves instead of practicing avoidance, our whole world would change. Because when we can be with ourselves and our own suffering, then we can be with others. And so the process of arriving to compassion is noticing the suffering. So you have to acknowledge it first instead of turn away from it. And then you have to decide that the person that's suffering, whether it's yourself or other, is worthy of compassion. And this is where social equality comes in. Racism, sexism. If we decide the other person is not worthy of compassion, the whole process stops there. But if we decide that they are worthy of our compassion, we can move on to wishing the relief of their suffering. And if we can, if we're in a position to, taking action to relieve that suffering. Because compassion is an action word. If we can't do something physical, like help out in some way, we can at least do a prayer, a wishing from our heart for the relief of their suffering. We may not even know how to relieve their suffering, but just may their situation get the support they need. And so if I drive past somebody and I can see they're having a difficult time, May somebody love them up. May they be recognized. May my loving heart lift them up in some tiny way that I can't even understand. So again, that relieves us of always having to do something physical, but we can also just send them a wish for well-being. And I just want to give an example of how powerful that is. There's a teacher on meditation and compassion, and she was in a city giving a retreat, and she sent everybody out to go wish compassion and relief for somebody. So they were to find somebody that maybe was somebody difficult for them to cherish, somebody they felt annoyed by, but they were just to stand there and meditate, wish them relief, wish them relief, wish them well-being, wish them prayers for their wholeness. So one person in the group did this, and she saw a man that he was by the train station, and he was kind of fretting and looked kind of stressed. And she just did this prayer for 5 minutes. He literally walked up to her and he said, I don't know why. He was in tears. I don't know why your presence is so relieving to me, but I just got divorced, and this is the first time my kids are coming on the train by themselves to meet me. And I'm very stressed about them being by themselves. But somehow you being there, I feel much better. So I love to share that example, that the power of our heart and what we're sending out can literally help somebody else co-regulate to calm down their nervous system.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That Buddhists call that the Brahma Viharas, when you're literally blessing others and then yourself, and others and then yourself. And it's amazing for anybody who hasn't done the Brahma Viharas. It can change your whole experience of life.
And it can change that feeling of isolation. And
Yes.
one of the key things about compassion is we can drop into common humanity. So when we see people as other, and this is also where the social equality comes in, when we make somebody other, and not part of our cave, not part of our clan, we come up with harsher punishments, we judge them more quickly, we don't see into their context of their behavior. When we consider somebody part of our group, part of our tribe, part of our family, we're more forgiving. We give them more context for their behavior, and we don't tend to punish them as quickly. We tend to support them more. So that's why it's so important to come home to ourselves, so we're not othering ourselves, we're not alienating ourselves, because it increases our capacity to welcome others home, to us, to the group, to our culture. And that's a powerful place. And I just want to share kind of a challenging thing for me. So if I was going to make somebody other, it would be a soldier. And so the man that I was abducted by, I have reason to believe, he was a soldier. It's possible that he was a Vietnam vet going to be a mercenary in the Rhodesian War. The Rhodesian government was recruiting for that. So I was shot by a soldier. I was also saved by a soldier. So if I was going to make somebody other or the bad guy in my head, it would be a soldier. And so I'm challenging myself by I'm going to do a retreat for veterans and give the singing medicine that I do to help their healing. And the kind of way that it benefits me comes full circle in my hero's journey is at 8 years old, I couldn't change the abductor. I couldn't make him well. I couldn't make him loving. I couldn't make him see me even as a person. But now as an adult with agency in my power, in my gift that I've been given, I can return that to people who are interested in healing. I'm not going to go to people who are unsafe and say, I'm going to sing to you. But I can go to people who are interested and willing and saying, can I contribute a drop to your healing? Because I believe in you, that trauma to leadership potential is right there. And just when we can co-regulate, when we can support each other, when we can say, I see you, you're a valuable human being, just as my mama did for me, then it just is going to elevate all of the masculine feminine balance. There needs to be so much support to heal the masculine so that we have that masculine feminine balance. And honestly, so women are safer. One of my friends said to me, if we don't address masculine misalignment, we're going to have to keep repairing the feminine. So that's a project I have coming up, is to do this retreat. And when I have sung for an Iraq vet, it was so powerful, and that's part of what motivated me to do this. So singing to different groups of people is a real love of mine.
Beautiful. And if you guys didn't see in the newsletter, I just put a link, Robin's beautiful message, from the ancestors to mankind, which basically she elaborates on what she was just sharing. And it's really a beautiful message. Yeah, whoever that is,
Whatever
mute
that
yourself. Listen to it later.
And I'm just going to correct, that would be a message to humankind. So
yes, thank you. You know, so there's a perfect point that reminds me about humor. What does humor play in your healing and in healing in general? Because as you know, you and I, and so a lot of people, I've been told that I have a dark sense of humor, and I know that you do too, which is why we get along so well. And explain how that can help us, that we can actually, and it, you know, may have come out of necessity, trauma, that we were able to see humor, but how now basically laughing at our situations, or at least taking it more light and using humor can help heal us.
And humor is resilience. Humor is a form of being able to bounce back. And so even if the content isn't actually funny at the time, literally laughing is the equivalent of crying. So, you know, when we do that kind of nervous, like relief laughter, it's physiologically as beneficial as having a good cry. And I'll just share, when I was in the second inpatient trauma treatment unit, there was another severe abuse survivor, trauma survivor, and she and I took a walk, and we were literally howling in laughter about how gross our abuse was. And we were on the ground, holding our bellies, laughing so hard. And we just physiologically got rid of, I mean, that was like 5 therapy sessions just to laugh that hard with each other. And we came back to the treatment center and we said, we're going to do a stand-up comedy routine on being a torture survivor. And everybody is like, we're not coming. This is not funny. And she and I just thought it was great. So it is a form of resilience. And so sometimes it takes being with other extreme abuse survivors to be able to laugh about that. There was like a Thanksgiving dinner I did, and it was like all my friends who are extreme abuse survivors, and we're making jokes. And this one person who didn't know us, who had a relatively normal childhood, she's just kind of getting pale as we're talking and we're joking. And she just looked at the other person who also wasn't an extreme survivor, and she said, "Do they always talk like this?" And we're like, "Oh, we're sorry, we forgot you're here. We'll try to tone it down a little bit." So whatever gets it out. Movement, I'm a huge fan, because embodiment is the key to healing. If you heal up in your head, that's cognitive, is a great start. But when the trauma healing comes into your soma, into your body, into your movement, then that's when you're really going to have change in your life. That's when you're going to have freedom around food, freedom around your relationships. Because the reason I'm so passionate about people doing their work is because you get to be free. When we practice avoidance and resistance, we're prisoners of our trauma recycling in our nervous system every day. Our decisions are made by our knee-jerk response. Doing your healing work gets it so you can have agency to choose yourself from your conscious mind, not your unconscious history, not your 5-year-old who was abandoned making your relationship decisions. So that's why I'm so passionate about it, because turning towards is eventually freedom. In the meantime, it's horrible. And I also want to go back to what you said about the humor. So the spleen is really affected by when we're having looping thoughts over and over again. So I really am a big fan of tapping, if those of you who know tapping, and also yoga. You can go bend over, opening up the spleen area to get back to your sense of humor. So our spleen's on our left side, so you can go up, breathe over, and open that spleen up. So if you've really lost your sense of humor, you're really totally serious, you're convinced that everybody's a jerk and you're the only smart person in the world, do this, and then see if you can open that up and get your sense of humor back, get your perspective back, and be able to come back into common humanity. I think I should sing.
Beautiful.
I think I should sing.
Yeah, yeah. I was
To the
gonna
whole.
say, yeah, I was
Mhm.
gonna mention that and just let everybody know also that we are gonna go over. So you're welcome, hopefully everybody can stay.
Right.
But
And remind me, our theoretical ending time is my time, 7:30. So
say, yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, your
okay.
time.
All right. So
Yes.
what I'm going to do is go ahead and sing to the group as a whole, and then Shaun, do you want to pick?
Yeah, so you can go ahead and raise your hands if you would like to be sung to.
She
And
already did.
S-
She knew it was
Sil-
coming.
Sylvia is first for
Mm-hmm.
sure. And
Hi.
then we'll let you use your guidance. But before you start that, can you just talk just really a little bit more about Mama Eaton and how I don't, so that people can understand you were all the way through the death tunnel. You
Mhm.
had gone through all the layers. You were dead. You were at home and you heard her voice, this medicine singer. I mean, to me, it's just so amazing. And she called you back. So maybe just talk a little bit more about that and how the gift came to you.
Mm-hmm. So when I was doing my trauma resolution, at a certain point, I started singing songs, writing songs on the guitar just to get my trauma out. Like I said, I did visual art and I was singing these songs. And then it started to change, and her singing to me started to come back. And then the more I unpacked my story, because I've been writing my book for 13 years, and really unpacked my story, gave myself the gifts of the story back, and just that she opened inside me, and also another medicine singer in Zimbabwe sang to heal me, and they helped me remember my original divine assignment, which is to sing to people. I'm part of the clan of the medicine singers, so people who sing at birth, people who sing at ceremony. And so this is what I love to do, and what I'm doing is I'm listening into the song that people were born with, and I'm listening to the song in the land, and that combines with the medicine songs that I carry, and I just do my best to deliver that back to people. And so when I get lucky, then people say, "Oh, I recognize that song," or I could feel it through my whole body. So I'm going to sing to the group as a whole, and then I'm going to sing to those first three people. I know that there's lots of people, so if you do join into my Nurture Your Nervous System class, I will sing to more people there. And then you're also welcome to join in on so the Nurture Your Nervous System is free, but you're also welcome to join in on my 5-person groups where I sing to each person and do a reading and a drawing for each person. Those are incredible. 5 people from around the world sign up, and I get to go ahead and deliver empathy and compassion and singing medicine to each person. So first I'm going to sing to the whole group. And so again, I'm listening into who's here. Show me a ho I he I hey oh me ho hey I he I hey oh hey I my ho he oh. Mhm. So, Sylvia, would you like to unmute yourself and be sung to? Mhm. So, when you check in with your body, with your being, where would you like to be sung to? Where's a place that could really use some tender, loving care?
My womb and pelvis and uh, anus, the rear part.
Okay, thank you for being so honest. Okay, so we're just holding that with loving kindness. And just as I sing, and you got your bear, excellent. So when I'm singing to you, just notice you're breathing in and you're breathing out. And if it gets a lot, like if you feel a lot of vibration, just come back to your breath. And if you need to, move a little bit. Because so much what happens in trauma is that we freeze. And so movement is your ticket to get out of jail free. All right, so again, checking in with your breath, and so that's great instructions for everybody. Notice, am I breathing in? Am I breathing out? Shum namahayam, oh ehiyam, oh ehamai ho, hiyayam, heyayahiyam, huayahayam, oh, hamnayamai, oh, Yahweh, hiyayahayam, oh, ham, ooh. And Sylvia, if you don't have words, that's totally fine. But if you do want to get across anything you felt in your body, I'm all ears.
Interestingly, I felt an itching in my head area at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm healing from falling on my face almost 3 weeks ago. Something I wanted to offer to you and to all in Thanksgiving and appreciation. I do origami. And so the heart, obviously, and cherishing the womb and pelvis. That's an important part of little sis in my life.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I'm hoping that a little bit of more circulation happened here to help healing that bruise and help healing that impact.
Yeah, and thank you
You are
really deeply
welcome.
for the work, all that you do and
Mhm.
are.
It's my honor. All right, Kathleen, are you ready? Would you like to be sung to? Oh, I'm sorry, Colleen.
Oh,
Colleen, go ahead and unmute yourself.
yes,
And
yes,
then,
yes.
okay, great. And then Catherine will be next. All right, and so you're in Maui. Great. And when you check in with your body and your being, where would you like to be sung to?
What's lighting up right now is this tension pattern I have on my left side. It's mostly around my rib area, diaphragm, spleen.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, this is affecting abdomen, lower abdomen, upper abdomen,
Mm-hmm.
reproductive, all that.
Okay. And so when I'm singing, see if there's any part of your vitality that comes back into your body. Because my perception, and you can see what feels true for you, is there's a little bit of your life force outside of your body there. So see if your body is ready to be welcoming to receive that vitality back into your physical form. Because when we go up and out, or when we're sideways or front and back of ourselves, or even on the other side still, our body doesn't do very well with that. And we need a good percentage of our vitality in our physical form. Shweyam, shweyi, iyam neyam noe, sham neyai, hoehi, iyam neyam hoe, heyayo, hoehi, iyam neyam hoe, hey ya ho, ne hai, ho e ho e ho e. So again, totally fine if you don't have words or want to be verbal, but if there's any sensation, emotion, image that you want to get across to us, I'm curious.
something of a kind of split.
So your audio is cutting in a little bit, but
This will probably be better.
yeah, that's better. I find when people take earbuds out, it's way
Sorry, no, I can't hear. Okay.
So do you want to just tell us about how you felt?
Okay, I think you can hear me, so I'm just going to keep talking because I can't hear you. Conflict between the two in my body kind of almost feels like a right side, left side sort of thing. And just feeling like the song is kind of helping me to get into a more unified place.
I
Excellent.
love that you said left side, right side, because the first time that Robin sang to me a year ago, a little over a year ago, on Trisha Barker's NDE Summit, it was the masculine and the feminine that I felt. So the power and the strength of the masculine, but then the nurturing and feminine. I mean, that's what is so amazing. So I love that you said left and right side, because and I want to share just really quick. Also, I forgot to mention at the beginning, when Robin and I first met, she called me like the next day after she had sung to me on Trisha Barker's NDE Summit. And she said, "Can I be frank?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. That's the only way that I like people to be." And she's like, "I'm supposed to help you." And then she goes into, it was amazing. So I have an abdominal hernia that is actually what caused me to come to Hawaii to begin with. Is strangulated, and I wasn't able to leave. And of course, it keeps coming back every time I do try to leave, so as to keep me in Hawaii. But literally, Robin said, like, she started like, and she didn't know this, and nobody else knew this, and she was like saying, "There's something on your lower right hand side. I'm not sure if it's the upper or lower intestine." But I have to tell you that she is the real deal. She's her gifts are so amazing and special, and she's helped me a lot. So I just wanted to add that, because I forgot to say that earlier.
And I just wanted to add too, I'm not doing individual sessions anymore because I'm working on a film project. So I'm still doing the groups, the 5-person groups every now and again. But like some people might kind of want an individual session after this. And I love you, but I can't do everything. So
Yeah, she has a book coming out and a documentary, so which is very exciting. But yeah, 5-person groups.
Yes, yep, you can still have direct access by the 5-person groups. So you're welcome to connect with those.
And August 12th, of course, is free for everybody to remember. I put the link in there.
Yep.
Okay,
great.
so choose your third.
So we have Catherine for third.
Oh, thank you, Robin. I'm so excited. I just fell a couple days ago, and I was trying to save a bug, this very ginormous bug that got in my house. And my guests wanted to kill it. And I said, no, we're not killing it. We're going to save it and get it, release it out of the house. So I went to take the broom to get him to go to the sliding glass door and go out. And instead, he decided to fly around my head, and he had a long tail about 4 inches long. So this was a bug that was very unusually large and freaky looking. So I started to run because it was over my head, and I tripped and I fell and I landed on my ribs, and my face bashed into the floor. So I fractured a little bone in my nose and my head and my lip. That's why I have looks like I have a little mustache under my bottom lip, but it's a bruise. So I'm a little banged up.
Okay. So the real key is to heal that surprise that's in the anterior of the neck. There's a deep muscle there that's on the front part of the vertebrae. And so when we have something like that where we get surprised, car accident, falling, the muscles, of course, guard up to protect the joints. So let's see if we can get a little bit more ease in this anterior part that's connecting your cervical top down to kind of more your thoracic ribs.
my rib is really, the left side of my rib too is hurting too.
Yeah.
Just,
Oh, you have all my compassion around rib pain.
oh, thank-
Okay, so I think this one's going to be like a higher one, and then it might drop deeper.
okay, thank you.
Sunneaham, hey, ho, hey, ho. Nayahai, ho, hey, ho, hey, ho, hey, ho. I, ho, hey, ho. Hey, ho, hey, ho, hey, ho, ho, hey, hey, ho, hey, he, my, ho, hey, ho, 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 nai, ho, hey, ho, hey. He ne ho ho. I could keep going, but I'm gonna pause there and check in. Did you notice any shifts?
Oh yeah. I was feeling like a lot of energy in here, this area right in here. And was feeling this, I still feel it in the back of my head, right behind, like on the right side. It almost feels like somebody's, doesn't really feel like burning, but just there's something going on there, definitely. And then I was seeing this little being. He kind of looked like a monkey, but not really. And he was taking this pole, and he was supporting the pole to support me, like I guess my spine or something. He was like trying to help to align the spine with this pole. But he was really cute.
And do you know about Hanuman? The
Yes, I
Indian
do.
So maybe look up Hanuman and see if there's anything more for you there.
Yeah. Well, I have a connection to the Sasquatch being, so.
Okay.
But this looked like a little monkey. It was really cute. It was really cute.
Okay. Well, good. Yeah. So my suggestion is when you do your meditation, if you have a meditation practice, really relax the roof of your mouth. Let the roof of your mouth widen, and let that relaxation keep going down into the deepest part of your throat. So we have our kind of a more forward part, and then there's the deeper part. So relax your jaw, relax the roof of your mouth, and let that keep benefiting down. And then I think your ribs will heal faster.
Okay. Thank you.
You
I
are
so
so
appreciate
it. All right, Shaun, are we just going to go over and do some time for questions? Is that?
Yeah. Do you have time to just do one more? There's one other person that didn't get her hand up that's really could benefit.
I got
Mark.
lots
Okay.
of we just don't have a ton of time, but we'll do one more.
One more, and then we can do any questions and answers that you feel time for. Marcia, would you like to unmute and turn on your camera? Marcia Latz.
Maybe she changed her mind, or she doesn't know how to unmute.
Marcia, are you there?
Yeah, I was signing up for her class.
Okay.
I'm back.
Okay, we can do it that way.
But my friend Kia is here with me. We are watching together today.
I don't know.
Can we just have time? She just has time to sing to one of you, though, right?
Yeah, that's fine.
No,
I just
you,
don't know
Marcia.
if it's too confusing with more people.
No, I can feel Kia stronger. Can I sing to her?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
She said that she's
Singing
stronger.
to you. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if Kia's had a loss recently, but I feel really sad. So I'm just gonna sing to honor that sadness. Shumneam hayo eam nehayam Oeam hayayo eam nam hayahi naham ham naho nayam ham naho ho connection to the other side, permission to keep living your life, permission to be here, be in joy, take care of yourself, and that even if others have suffered or you've lost others, you're still here. And committing to living your life is the best gift that you can give them.
So it started the
Thank you.
video. I don't
Thank
know
you.
what you can see. I can't see it. Can you see it?
Can I see me?
I'm not able to see you right now.
No, I can't see.
Well, I started the
myself.
video. Let's see where the camera.
Thank you, though. Thank you.
You are so welcome.
Can you-
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing you in my Nurture Your Nervous System class.
Okay.
And I'll also just mention while I'm thinking of it, one of the best ways that people can help me get my book published is to sign up on my email list. Publishers, one of the first things I look at is the number of email signups. So that is the best way that you all could help me get a publisher interested.
Okay, Marshall, you help me.
Thank
get
you.
Yeah,
that.
I'll make sure she gets registered. Yeah.
I'm not good with
And-
technology.
We'll make that happen, and I really appreciate that. But I don't understand why my camera isn't showing one or the other. There we go. Okay, there's Kia. There
Okay,
you
how
go.
about I
Yeah.
keep working with you in the Nurture Your Nervous System class, and Shaun will go to
Yeah.
questions.
I just wanted you to see her.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
that's all I was trying to say is I thought I'd done that. So thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so why don't go ahead and put your questions in the chat that anyone has, and then
And
we'll
also-
kind of.
Mhm.
we
And I
will
just
kind
also
of-
want to honor if people, this is your time that you had and you have to drop off. Just thank you
Yes.
so much for coming. And if you want
Yes,
to
and thank you very much. And we will also put Robin's information in the
There we go.
the Hawaiian IANDS Facebook group, as well as in our next newsletter. So make sure that you're signed up. And so if they go to the website, there's an easy sign up form, correct?
Yes, yes, on my website. It's on every page. Mhm.
Awesome. Okay. So if you want to just go ahead and Osha, do you have a question for Robin? Just need to unmute.
Mhm.
Hi, thank you. Wow, what a story. Amazing. I've been in the healing field for like 50 years. I started yoga, meditation, and all of that in my 20s. I'm in my 70s now. And I know that we all that are participating in this type of stuff are the way showers. But I guess the question just came to mind is no matter what I do for with my good health and meditation and all that, and I continue to have a yoga practice, I feel this underlying anxiousness. I know that I'm safe, and I know that I'm loved, and I know that I'm lovable. And I been following different channels for most of my life because I'm from California. I lived in California 60 years. I live in Nashville now. And I love Paul Selig and his work and the word and all of that. But there's this anxiousness. I don't know if I'm just feeling the world energy, but if you have any words of wisdom for that.
Mhm. And are you on any adrenal supplements in terms of herbal adrenal support?
I wrote that down. I take so many different supplements and I'm, fermenting and doing all that stuff, but I'm going to look up,
Right.
I don't know what I'm taking for adrenal. So
Mhm.
I'm going to look that up since you mentioned that. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, there's all kinds of really great forms of adrenal support. Kind of one of the quicker herbs to build your adrenals faster is rhodiola.
No, I'm not on that. I don't
It
even know
can
how to
really
spell that
reduce
one.
the
How do
high
you spell that?
startle and
You know how to spell
anxiety.
that? Say that one more time. Sorry.
Rhodiola.
How do you spell that?
I have to write it down
Or
first.
kinda?
RHODIOLA. So RHODIOLA. Rhodiola. And it's
No,
pretty.
I never even heard of that one.
Yeah, it's a really good adrenal support. It feels like a
Is that
pretty
the
good.
capsule or a tincture?
Yeah, you can get a capsule. You can get it in combination with other adrenal supports. So what I like to do is when I go to the co-op or the health food store, is I like to pick up the product, hold it to my body, and ask, "Is this good medicine for me?" So then the key challenge is watching what are your signals. If I feel a nice grounding feeling, a calming feeling, then I'm going to consider that good medicine. If I feel nothing, then that's not maybe the brand or the product. If I feel more agitated, then it's probably not the right thing for me. So I'll go ahead and put it back on the shelf and then like pick up another brand and see how I feel, just so I can get my meter of what's helpful to me, and then I'll pick up the thing that I want. Sometimes I pick something up and I'm like, oh my God, this is the thing. And other times I have to like go back and forth and test it out. But you can use your body as a meter. And I want to put a caveat: if people are still at the height of their trauma recovery, this is hard to do because it's hard to get accurate sensation. So if you've done all the work that you have with yoga and all these different things, just hold the supplement towards your body and ask, is this good medicine for me at this time? And just pick the one that feels like the most grounding, the most potent, the most reorienting. Because, and of course, you know, all the breath practices that can help with anxiety. But again, that beautiful compassion practice of when you feel the anxiety, turning towards yourself and asking, what's my underlying need? And just, even if you can't meet that underlying need right now, maybe it's more companionship. Maybe it's, you know, just some quiet space. But you can still acknowledge that underlying need. And that alone can sometimes reduce anxiety. But the adrenal support is huge for so many people.
And obviously, we also want to consult your physician. But I will tell you that if you get a blood test, at least in my experience, they said my adrenals were fine. And then I started taking adrenal, which I took one as a kid as well. And so the blood tests are not always accurate.
Well, I'm not going to write to my doctor. Don't worry about that.
Right. And I just want to add, kind of honestly addressing that, Western medicine doesn't really acknowledge adrenal health. And so their standards for what is a well adrenal are taking from a pool of all unhealthy people who don't have good adrenal support. So their scale of what's acceptable is not what a functional medicine or a naturopath would consider within the healthy range. So that's why I wouldn't recommend Western medicine for this. I would recommend.
I agree. I've been a renegade all my life. I've never even taken a flu shot. So, but I don't have a functional medicine doctor, and I'm going to find one.
Yeah.
Osha, are you in?
I just stay away from doctors, period. That's all. Sorry.
Are you in Hawaii? You're not.
No, I live in Nashville now.
Oh, okay.
Tennessee.
Yeah, because
I've been to Hawaii.
I have an excellent doctor here, but
no, what works?
He doesn't make house calls that far.
Yeah, right.
Not that far.
Thank you very much. And who else has a question?
Any more?
I have a question that somebody sent me. So many NDE'ers have traumatic brain injury. We have several here who have TBI. What is your message to give to them? And you know that a lot of people they lose hope. You know, what can you explain to them about what you know and your healing?
So I've been a craniosacral therapist for 20 years, and so I would recommend finding a craniosacral therapist you feel good about who has some experience with traumatic brain injury. Obviously reducing your stimulus, like, you know, not watching movies that have shock value. One of the things that's really important to me in my film that I'm going to make, docuseries that I'm going to make, is that it's traumatic brain friendly, and that it doesn't have shocking things, it doesn't have flashing lights. So, and just making it so that those of us who have lived through trauma can actually feel better after watching it, rather than getting a bunch of trauma content thrown at us in a shocking way. So really making sure that you reduce your stimulus, take good care of yourself in that way, not watch news, have things like blue filter glasses, have, filters for bright lights if you need that, and, craniosacral acupuncture, developmental movement therapy. There's all kinds of really beautiful methods and practitioners to help the nervous system. So if it doesn't include addressing calming the nervous system, then I would be a little bit cautious about it. Like if it's chiropractic, that sometimes some are great as far as addressing the nervous system, and some it's just too abrupt. Eating a diet that's non-inflammatory. You can look up Dr. Andrew Weil, all kinds of people have non-inflammatory diet recommendations, because any inflammation in the brain is going to cause more distress, more cognitive dissonance, and bad oils, fast food, oils that have been heated again and again, which is the worst part about fast food. So making sure you stick to really high quality oils like olive oil, avocado oil. There's a couple others that are non-inflammatory. So those are my basics, as well as, if you can afford something like craniosacral therapy, meditation is huge. There's a great book, Trauma Sensitive Mindfulness, that really addresses that sometimes not all mindfulness and meditation techniques are trauma brain friendly. And so making sure that you get with a practitioner that's going to let you take a break when you need to, or let you step out of the room. All kinds of gentle movement practices, qigong, and just make sure it's a good fit for you, and it's a practitioner who gets it and doesn't just think you can do what everybody else can do.
Yeah, and it's also important, once you find the right teacher or program, it's amazing that you can actually reprogram the neural pathways. Like that's, that like I am safe now. At least in my experience, that's what I've experienced over the last few years. And I wanted to underline what you said about don't watch the news, because as a form in my own life doing marketing, it's all about making people feel things. So their whole intention is to cause you anxiety and to make you upset, to make you do something. So that's the biggest thing that I could say is don't watch the news, don't read the news, just literally look for the few things that you need. But
and my approach, I decided for myself, especially being so highly empathic, is that if it's useful to me and the people around me that I love and I can do something about it, then I need to know the news. Ooh, did you hear that thunder? Also a bit of lightning. So speaking of news, I'm hoping we won't have a fire from that, but it's good rain.
That was good timing.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the gods were saying, like, just stick to like where you can be of service, because if it's something that is overwhelming to my nervous system and I can't actually help the people, then it's not helpful for me to know about it every day. So I don't actually watch just like the nightly news and fill my nervous system with all kinds of horrible stuff. So if it's useful to keeping the people around me safe and loved, and because when we can act upon something, then our inner agency feels good. When we're just hearing something we can't do something about, then our nervous system is activated and there's no agency in action to take. All right.
Philip Lau, are you here? Did you have a question? Are you still here? Hey, there you are. Philip, would you like to unmute and ask your question? There you go.
The question I wrote was, the Lemurian singers always sang healing songs or songs of love. Are you aware of that?
Say the name again.
The Lemurian singers.
It sounds very familiar.
You've heard of
50
Lomaria,
Mm-hmm.
Mu, which is
Yeah.
before Atlantis. That's
Okay,
what
yes. Yes, and what I love is that, like, I'm certainly not inventing anything new here. That singing to each other to heal is part of human history. It's primordial. And so I'm just one of the many amazing beings throughout history that's just contributing my part to this. The human voice to heal is very powerful. And, what do we love when we need to be comforted is, somebody rocking and singing to us. So I'm all about encouraging people to sing to themselves, sing to each other, and use the power of vibration and the human voice to say, I see you, you matter, you're real. So thank you for bringing up more people who have used and beings that use singing and the power of vibration to do extraordinary healing work. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Catherine, did you have a question?
Actually, excuse me, I just have a comment that I wanted to say. I just think that the music that you're singing is just so beautiful and profound and healing. And I know from my own experiences that when I've had different times in my life where I've been feeling so very connected to my soul family, I have a Native American family that is very much with me. They're like a parallel life. They're not even a past life. And so when I've had different traumas in my life, I see them and I'm with them and they take me on healing journeys. But some of the things that I have heard is they're singing and they're chanting and they're drumming during those experiences. So I think, like you were saying, it's universal, you know, the healing that comes through that kind of music and the chanting and drumming and singing. It's just so beautiful. And I really appreciate you being here and doing this work that you do. Thank you.
It's my honor. And one of my colleagues, she's a psychologist, and she went to, when it was Soviet Union, she went to a place in the Soviet Union, and when they got delivered some bad news, and the response was, well, we just need to get together and sing traditional songs. And so they just got together and they sang traditional, historic, ancestral songs. So that was their way of comforting each other. And they didn't drink, they didn't just turn on the TV, they sang together. So if I can contribute to, helping people remember that is an option to soothe yourself, to sing to yourself, to sing with other people. One of the things I love living in Mount Shasta, it's a small town, is that my new group of friends, we get together and we sing a lot. There's no alcohol, there's no drugs, there's good healthy food, and then we just get out guitars and we chant and we sing together, and there's kirtan, and I feel incredibly alive. And so there's nothing community building faster than singing together.
Oh yeah. And even in I've been through the spiritualist community. I don't know if you're familiar with spiritualism, but these are people that do mediumship, and it's actually religion, but it's they bring in the spirit world. So in order to lift the vibration, to be able to meet with the spirit world, singing is something that they do a lot in the spiritualist community. And when they sit in circle, we'll sing songs and just really raise the vibration that way. So it really, really helps. And they come in, they have so much fun because we have to raise our vibration and they have to kind of lower theirs a little in order for us to meet in the middle and have that connection, but that's very powerful, and it works. So.
And that prompts me to share a story. I did a retreat on grief a couple years ago, and I had people bring an item of the person that they had lost. And so we made an altar to kind of spread out and see kind of the gifts and the different items. And so with people's permission, I held the item and sang. And there was parents who had lost their teenage daughter to a sudden illness. And so with their permission, I held, I think it was one of her stuffed animals. And she sang through me to them. I thought I was going to never need to breathe. She was just funding me, and this long-held, powerful note. I was just the humble voice and vocal cords, and she sang through me to them and just was thanking them for being her parents.
Wow.
So again, just the more we can clear ourselves of our nervous system trauma, the more we get to be the humble servant, to have divinity, to have beings on the other side, have loved ones come through us. So again, that's why I just am so excited about encouraging people's confidence to do their healing work, so that they can be more available to have, like you say, divine source come through us in really magical ways.
Oh yeah. Thank you for sharing that. That was
Yeah, and I just want to reiterate that having done several sessions with Robin, it's absolutely amazing. I would have never believed how healing it can be, and how it stays with you. You know, it's really quite nice. So thank you very much. We have one other question. Sandy, do you want to ask your question? If you want to unmute, you can unmute. Sandy wants to
Sure.
know. Okay, great. So I'll
Yeah,
preface it and then you
that's
go,
okay.
Sandy.
Please, yeah.
Just so you know how you've heard about the healing vortexes of the world, and Hawaii's one, and Mount Shasta's one. But Sandy would like to know more about Mount Shasta, and go ahead, Sandy.
Well,
Ask your question.
yeah, I guess my question was, when I saw that you were living in Mount Shasta, I mean, it's always been a sacred place for those of us who are familiar with Saint Germain and his teachings. So I was just wondering or curious about your connection to Mount Shasta.
So I was, so I divorced and I was living in Olympia, Washington, and it was like, okay, now what? And ready to move to a new landscape. I knew I was going to move towards film, so being in California was far more conducive than being in Washington. And I came down to visit a friend who has lived here for a decade, and she was always telling me like, oh, I'm going to a drumming circle, I'm going to a women's sweat lodge, I'm going to like another singing circle, I'm going to the river, I'm going to the mountain. I was like, oh, I'm jealous. So that means I want something of that life. So I came down to check out and see if I wanted to live here, and she organized for me to do singing medicine on the mountain to a group of people, and the group filled like that, so that was great. And I sang to people, and the mountain funded me in this astounding way. And at the end of the singing circle, I said, I'm thinking about moving here. And they all were excited. And I said, I'm going to say that again. I am moving here. And then they got really excited. So I just felt welcomed right away. And the amount that my life has sped up in terms of my divine mission, when I was in Washington, I knew I was going to move into something different. And I literally heard, I went for a walk and was standing over a creek, and I heard, you're going to have your own production company. And I said, you're going to teach me how to do that? And they said, no, but we're going to send you the people who will. So I kid you not, I got here, I met somebody, I said, and I literally one day I kind of put my hands up in the air, and I said, I need somebody in the business world who knows really about film, like the film business world. Because I had a couple people offering to produce things for me, but I was not really feeling that good about it. So literally the next day I went to a tea house opening, and I don't know if Gary's still on the call, but Gary's now my production manager and is connecting to me all kinds of film people, and we met at a tea house opening. And I walked down the street afterwards and I said, thank you, Shiva, thank you, Mount Shasta. Just, I cannot believe how sped up things are. And it was quite intense for me when I first got here, because I am relaxed and allow energy to move through me. I don't think I had as hard a time as people who maybe were not as practiced at allowing. But my life has sped up. Like, if I need something, I say it like within 3 days. Like, not everything, but I just have to accept the things that aren't showing up. It's not the right time. But there were points in January, I arrived in November, points in January where I couldn't sit down in a chair because the mountain was so energizing to me. So I feel like I've titrated it a lot more, but I have to be so careful where my focus is, because the manifesting is, I think, about 10 times more potent here. And also I'm ready. I've been doing 2 decades of work to be ready for this. So
Nice.
yeah, but some people
Nice.
literally get spit out. You know, like they come here, they get spit out, and they leave again because it's too intense or not the right timing for them. So, but it's totally the right timing for me.
That's amazing. That happens in Hawaii too.
I know. The first time I went to Hawaii, I said something, I did not understand that. And I had just graduated from massage school, and I said something foolish like, let me be fully healed so I can be available for my patients, you know, my future patients. Oh my God, I spent the whole vacation like crying and doing my trauma resolution work. My partner was like, could you say, let me have a fun vacation next time? I did not understand the power of the land because I hadn't been someplace that potent. So
Yes.
now I know when I come to Hawaii, just say, let me have a gentle, fun snorkeling experience. You know?
Yeah, and the Big Island is the most powerful. That's where if you have stuff that needs healing, that you're ready, that's
Right.
where it's going to come up.
Right.
So, Clara, did you have a question? I see that you have a green check mark, but I don't know if that means you have a question or not. You need to unmute if you.
I have a check mark because I missed the raise hand. So I did a wrong click.
No worries, we saw it.
Yeah.
Oops, need to unmute.
I did unmute before.
Yeah, I think somebody might have accidentally muted you.
Yeah.
So you have a question?
Well, is that all the advices, my only concern, I don't think is the adrenal glands. It maybe is the cortisol, because every night I wake up in the middle of the night. I go sound asleep 2-3 hours. And before, for a long time, melatonin was always working, but now it's not working. And I tried any supplement, ashwagandha and valerium and everything. And I know all the things that are recommended for good night sleep. I don't watch the news. I don't get caffeine. I meditate, not every day, but occasionally, and I am in a group with meditation. And I don't know which other advice you can have.
I'm very, very clear. So holding your kidney points. So see how I've moved my shoulders forward so you can see my collarbones. So start at your sternum, go with 2 fingers, walk underneath your collarbones to about right here in the middle. And you might feel a tender spot or like you just fell in a hole. So like I did this just before when I was meditating. So hold your kidney points if you need to, like put pillows under your arms so your arms don't go to sleep in this position. And I find in about 5 minutes, I'll feel my kidney chi drop down. Because sometimes if we have that kind of high cortisol, then we have too much kidney chi rising at bedtime. And what we want is our kidney chi going down our body, not up our body. Because if we get tons of thoughts or looping thoughts, that's either spleen, too much spleen energy, or kidney chi rising. So holding the kidney points at bedtime will help drop that energy down. And like I say, I find about like 4 minutes. I've done it a lot, so it might be quicker for me. But I'll just feel this like, ooh, just kind of drop back into myself. And then I'll remember like, oh, right, I'm not in control. Divine creator has it all. Like, it's not Robin's will, it's divine will. So it helps me get out of myself and out of my head and drop back down into that downward chi energy. So try that out and see if that's helpful. If you have somebody who's willing to help you, you can look up the kidney points on the bottom of the feet. So especially in winter time is kidney meridian time. If you're able to hold the bottom of your own feet, like so say this is my foot, the kidney point would be about right here. You can look it up online, just look up kidney points, bottom of foot, images online. And then you can hold that point or somebody can hold it for you if you've got somebody that sweet.
Thank you very much. I will try it.
And it's free.
I made some comments that you are such an amazing soul. Totally amazing. I've never heard anybody so calm talking about your trauma. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
It is totally my honor. Thank you for letting me know.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Clara. Okay, well, unless we have any final questions, do you have a final thought, Robin? We're going to make sure, I just want to remind everybody that we will put Robin's event in the Hawaiian IANDS Facebook group, at her website, and all of the follow-up information about that. And also please check out the IANDS conference, sign up for that. If you can't go in person, it will be live streaming, but of course it will be fun to see people that we don't get to normally see in person, to get to see them live. And do you have anything else to add, Robin?
I just welcome people's prayers and wishes. We're working on getting funding for the docuseries, and we have a nonprofit that is our umbrella, so we can take tax deductible donations, and just really like pausing for 1 second and visualizing our project completely funded, and me being able to hire all the beautiful crew that we found, and do our great work together, because it's going to be a really extraordinary project.
I see it already as funded. I really do. I know it is.
Yes.
It's the checks just have to come in, but it's
exactly. and just really honoring too everybody that's going to be involved, from funders to director to all kinds of the people, and just I want everybody to have some healing in the process. So yes.
I am beyond honored.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for being such a great friend and for sharing. You know, you don't have to do this, you know, and it's such a gift that you are sharing with the world. So thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for coming, for Susan and Lorelei and everybody who was helping, and Jack, who was helping moderate. And we will see you all in the next sharing group and at Robin's event on the 12th. So thank you very much, everybody. Aloha. Nice to see you.
And thank you, Shaun, for all that you do to bring these together. And I see in the chat there's a donation button to support, because Shaun and everybody's volunteering. And so it'd be great to just give them a thank you financially for their time and devotion.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Have a great night, everybody. Stay away from the news. Go listen to Robin singing more on her YouTube channel.
Okay.